Plausible deniability is a double-edged blade, right? This is a very important concept to understand because for individuals who are feminine dominant, plausible deniability is their go-to, right? When you want somebody more than you want to do things your own way, more than you want to be upfront or honest about it, and you want to take advantage of what they're giving to you without really investing anything yourself, then plausible deniability is the go-to. A lot of seduction works off of the concept of plausible deniability. Now, what is plausible deniability, right? Plausible deniability is, for example, and this is just off the top of my head. Let's say you see a rule, or let's say there's a rule, but you don't know what the rule is. So when you break the rule, you can say that you didn't know. And you can absolve yourself of the responsibility of the actions that you took. Right? Just like the police are able to lie to you or aren't held accountable to actually knowing the law, they can say that, oh, I didn't know that rule. Now, it shouldn't be that way, but that's true. Right? That's plausible deniability. But another aspect of plausible deniability is like this. On one aspect of it, plausible deniability can be used to hide your intentions when you want to do something that doesn't agree with your morals or the construct or the social constructs of the dynamic that you're engaging in. Right? It gives you leeway to build attraction or to build desire before you make your attempt at trying to escalate things sexually. Right? Like the 7th level of sexual attraction works a lot off of psychological reactance and plausible deniability. Right? That's how a lot of cheating occurs. So, in one instance, a man can try to use plausible deniability and give that to a woman so she doesn't have to take the moral repercussions within herself or take accountability or responsibility for her choice to engage in casual sex when the way she views herself socially is as someone who doesn't agree with engaging in that type of behavior. Right? A man may use psychological might use plausible deniability about his sexual intentions to get a woman alone with him, to get her to like him, right? And then to escalate things sexually in a more, what people call let things happen naturally type of way. Instead of having the game to arouse that woman in the time, to put her feet to the fire, say, this is what I'm trying to do. And she can say yes or no. Right? It's giving yourself more time to get what you want out of the situation. Right? Another aspect of plausible deniability can be if a woman wants a relationship and then you never want one with this particular woman or at all, and then you don't let her know that that's never in the cards for y'all. That's plausible deniability. But, and I understand why some men will use these things, right? I understand it. But what I will say is this. Plausible deniability is a double-edged blade. It's a double-edged blade. Some women purposefully get inebriated or get intoxicated or drink alcohol or smoke weed or do whatever they got to do to lower their inhibitions so that they'll be more open and receptive to a sexual encounter. Some women purposefully go out and drink, go out to bars, go out to clubs, get drunk so that they don't have to take the moral responsibility of their decision to engage in casual sex. But it's a double-edged blade because this lack of having to take responsibility for making that conscious choice not only helps them be more receptive to making that choice, But it also gives them the ability to put you as a man on the line as someone who took advantage of her not being in a conscious enough state to make that decision. Right? Real shit. So some women purposefully get drunk so that if they get slut shamed or they don't get what they want out of the scenario after they had sex with a man, they can then say that the dude date raped them. And sometimes they don't go into that situation with that in mind. They're just trying to have fun. But if they don't get what they want to get out of the scenario, like if they don't enjoy themselves, they felt like, I wanted to do it before I went, but when I went, I didn't really want to do it, so I didn't say anything, but I didn't want to not do it. But I just didn't want to say anything. And then, you take plausible deniability about consent, assuming that because she's receptive to you, that it's a consensual situation, then she may just be a woman who lacks boundaries and goes along with it. Maybe she fears you'll get aggressive and violent if she turns you down. She'll go along with it. And then maybe some weeks later, maybe some days later, she feels guilt or shame about the decision that she made. Maybe the sex wasn't good, or even if it was good, you took her to a place that she didn't feel like she was ready to go because she just opened up another side of her and she didn't like what she saw when she went there. She might talk to a friend who will break down the scenario and tell her, no, you were raped, you were violated. And then she'll be able to take the context of the scenario, reshape it, alleviate herself of all responsibility and accountability for the decisions that she made, and then to be able to make you the villain. See, what plausible deniability does is it also gives power to a person to claim victimization. And you can get your reputation tarnished through the use of plausible deniability, especially if you're in a power dynamic, right? Where maybe you're a boss, or maybe you're a person who's famous, right? Or maybe you're a person who has a lot of money. Maybe you're a person who's very large, right? And your physical demeanor is very imposing, right? These things can create both attraction and intimidation, right? The very same things that one woman may be attracted to you for may be the same thing that another woman may claim or truthfully feel intimidated by and be willing to part ways with the resource of her body because she doesn't want to suffer the repercussions of if she doesn't do what you want. And that's a confusing thing for a lot of men, right? It's like you think you put in all this work to get to a position of power because somebody told you, get the money and the women will follow. Get to a position of power and the women will be there. Chase the money and the women will be there. And you never develop your game, your ability to approach a woman and attract her with who you are as a man, to offer a dick and see if she gets with it or not without trying to bait her with, the idea of she'll have access to you financially, emotionally, or socially if she has sex with you. Right? Because she may be using plausible deniability about what she really wants from you because she's just hoping for the best. But if she doesn't get it, she'll still feel used and she'll still seek to vilify you. Right? There's a lot of ways that plausible deniability works. And the players are used to using that, right? There's different ways it works. There's different types of game. There's that upfront game, the more direct. Then there's the overtime seduction, right? And as a man, responsibility is something that often goes along with that. So you kind of just accept that, you embrace it. It comes with the territory. So you might say, hey, listen, you can come through. There is no expectation of anything going down. But I want you. And you also have to understand that the double-edged blade of plausible deniability sometimes is psychological reactance and reverse psychology. And I might make a video about that by itself, but I'm going to be talking about that some more. Right? When you use reverse psychology and then a woman takes the effort to push things forward because you give her the option not to, what you're really doing sometimes is playing on her ego and her desire to feel desired. And by letting her know that she doesn't have to do anything, on one hand, it makes her feel desired for what strokes her ego, but on the other hand, it triggers her ego about feeling desired for what you want. So by pulling away, if you don't see an immediate reception or responsiveness to what you're trying to do, or by giving her the plausible deniability of saying nothing has to go down, she might agree to fucking with you on the premise of you not pushing it. But if that were to become a long-term scenario, if you ever then switch the roles and decide that you want to be the aggressor, that you want what you want, that consent isn't a consistent mindset through which you can gain access to this woman sexually, then if you ever decide to bypass consent and she doesn't feel that same level of horny on that day, or she isn't feeling you the same way on that particular day, the roles can flip and she can go along with it the same as she usually does. And then she might flip on it and say that you took advantage of her. Plausible deniability is a double-edged blade. Like another aspect of it can be, let's say, and this is where the waters of consent can become murky, right? Let's say you have sex with a woman, she's a little bit repressed. You're stroking her. She said, hold on, baby, hold on. You keep stroking and she come all over you, right? Now, at the moment that you did it, you're giving her plausible deniability about tapping into that high level of sexual desire and pleasure, of releasing and letting go. But another woman could say that, or the same exact woman could say, hold on, stop, because she's uncomfortable, right? So when you understand that aspect of things as well, you either got to be able to tell the difference, or you got to have a strict policy, strict program about how you do things. Because oftentimes the sexual shadow of a woman is going to be at times tapping into that feminine submissiveness, tapping into that space of desire, right? Where her social mindset, how she views herself, it may not be in line with her ideals about how relationships should work, right? She may think she's the type of woman who only wants to have sex in a long-term committed relationship, right? She may desire to be able to leverage sex to get the relationship that she wants. But she can't do that if she desires you sexually more than you desire her. Or if you take her to places sexually that she's unable to handle emotionally or handle mentally without constantly folding on the standards that she believes and perceives herself as having in order to have access to you sexually. Right? And I think this is where a lot of porn comes from, right? Where the power dynamics come in. You know what I mean? Because think about it like this. If you're going out on a business trip with a woman, right? Or you want to have a business meeting with her. You want to talk about content. You want to talk about this. You want to talk about that. Right? And the context isn't sexual and understood to be that. When that situation is established, then there's a certain level of plausible deniability that you're giving yourself. This is where our power dynamics often lead to Me Too situations. Because you may feel like the woman wanted to do it the whole time, but she may just fear the repercussions of it if she doesn't go along with it after you've already gotten her alone. Some women may really want to be down for that. Some women will feel taken advantage of. Because there's a difference between plausible deniability about things she wants to do versus plausible deniability about things she doesn't want to do. And both are with a purpose. Don't think this is only with the purpose of getting what you want out of the situation, only because a woman wants to have sex, but she really wants it. She don't know what she wants. We got to talk about token resistance, right? I'm not a fan of dealing with a woman who has token resistance, right? Because I know what it is. I get it. Right? And if you're a guy who goes on multiple dates and and you really take your time and get to know a woman before you try to have sex with her. You're trying to get her quote-unquote comfortable. And then when you try to make a move, she's like, oh, I'm not the type of girl. If you keep pushing, she might go for it. Some of them, they want you to do that. So you give them plausible deniability so that you give them the freedom to tap into something without taking responsibility for it. Another woman may want that. The same woman who really wants to fuck you may be the same woman who flips the scenario around and say that you pressured her or that you took advantage of her, right? Because convincing a woman to consent can be seen as coercion, right? Which gets categorized under sexual assault, right? But what I say is this: if your intentions are sexual, let a woman know that your intentions are sexual before she comes through, unless you're cool with letting your intentions be known when you do, and then immediately ceasing to pursue the sexual aspect of that dynamic as soon as she doesn't show receptiveness to consenting to it, right? And at that point, you might use a little bit of that reverse psychology and say, oh, you ain't got to do it. Or you might say, all right, cool, I'm out of here. But understand that when you don't give a woman clear sexual intentions that she could communicate to you, especially like in a text form where she can see the message, you can see the message, it's right there. She knows she's fucking before she come over. And then you might make her work or wait for it. You can build up the anticipation and the desire through your boldness. You can build up the anticipation and the desire through being direct and not being afraid of her rejecting your direct advances, your direct intentions. You can build anticipation and desire through speaking to her in a way that creates that desire, but making her work for the actual sexual gratification you're going to give her. Like I might have a woman come through, suck some dick. Cool, right? But I'm doing it in a way that builds up her desire for my validation. It builds up her sexual arousal. And I'm not just giving her dick for free, right? That can build up the desire in a similar way to giving the plausible deniability. Instead of her playing that cat and mouse game of chasing her to try to get sex with her, you're putting her in a situation where she knows that dick ain't free. She got to work for it. She got to earn it. So that's a way of bypassing doing the whole plausible deniability thing, because it's a double-edged blade. You know, they got places, I think in New York right now, they're trying to push for, if a man has multiple women, he doesn't tell the woman he sleeps with multiple women or has a girlfriend or whatever it is, that could be considered rape or sexual assault due to just dishonesty about your intentions. They're really pushing for these things. Now, within these laws that they're pushing, within these different movements that they have going on, toxic masculinity is something that is adhered to or something that's closely looked at. But toxic femininity is often overlooked. Now, what is toxic femininity? It's clinging to an assumed perception of innocence and harmlessness in a way that gives hypo-agency. It's a lack of accountability for your decisions. And then to use that to accrue a mob mentality within individuals, or to use that innocence or harmlessness or the identification with victimhood, right, to gain power, right? That's where toxic femininity comes in at. And a lot of it may be through dishonesty. A lot of it may be through duplicity. A lot of it may be through plausible deniability, right? A lot of it may be through doing things that they want to do, but not feeling comfortable with themselves about the decisions they were willing to make to get what they wanted to get. So if they don't get what they want to get, now they view you as a victimizer, as a predator. Some will purposely use this. Some will purposefully use these strategies in order to get leverage when it comes to a social environment or financial opportunities or business or marketing or to gain a fan base. Look at the situation with Amber Heard, right? Look at the situations with, and it's looking like this Meg Thee Stallion situation. It's a similar one, right? All the facts ain't out yet, but from the facts I've seen, it looked like she lying, right? Look like she lying. Look at these situations with a bunch of individuals, right? Like if you've seen the seen the table talk, red table talk with Will and Jada, and she was like, "Why had an entanglement?" Right? That's about toxic femininity. It's wanting to take away the responsibility, the accountability of one's own decisions through knowing that you're doing something that's hurtful, knowing you're doing something that is not going to be good, but wanting to find a way to always come out of a situation as the victim, even if you're the victimizer. That's where reactive abuse comes in, right? Where a woman may egg a man on, right? She may egg him on and hit him a few times. Then when he hits her back, call the police, pretend to be a victim. But it's a similar thing that can happen sexually, where a woman can egg a man on who lacks discipline, lacks sexual self-control, tease him, let him think that sex may happen, maybe, and then have that man invest in her financially. You know, he might maybe get some pussy, but then when the man gets alone with her, finally gets her alone, he maybe feel like, well, you told me I'd get the pussy if I invested this, and that. And she may be like, well, I said I maybe would. Sometimes in those situations, a man will rape the woman. Sometimes in those situations, that man will display a level of dominance sexually that triggers something in that woman that turns her on. I've seen situations like this, right? Not in person, but I've heard women tell me about it, where they would be playing the attention whore with a guy and having him invest all this time and energy, sometimes resources, but they wouldn't have enough sense and situational awareness not to be alone with the guy. So then the guy one day, you know, maybe he playing the nice guy, maybe he's just not trying to be that type of dude, but she finally gets alone with him. Maybe they were going on dates platonically, and she didn't feel like she was getting all the validation that she wanted out of it, being that she wanted to feel sexually desired and not just emotionally desired. So she'll flirt with the guy. So she'll try to get a sexual rise out of him. When they finally get alone, the dude might press some buttons, touch her like this, like that, without asking for consent, right? Because she's playing the attention whore. When he does it, it might turn the woman on in a way where she feels like sexually reciprocated a little bit. Now, if a man gets off his rockers and he wants to take that all the way, that woman would then feel as if she was raped. But she gave the man every indicator based on his mindset and how he views things to believe that she genuinely wanted to fuck with him. And the only way that she was sexually receptive to him is through giving plausible deniability and then disrespecting her boundaries, taking away the accountability and responsibility to her own choice by taking initiative and being assertive with his sexual desires and interests through physical boldness. All these things can backfire. Plausible deniability is a double-edged blade, right? And when you understand this, then there's certain ways that you gear the way you interact with women to protect yourself. Consent isn't only about protecting the woman. Consent is also about protecting yourself. See, consent is a double-edged blade as well. And when you're not used to dealing with women who you can be upfront with, who are down for what you're down for, or let's say every woman who's down for what you're down for only wants dick, but you want a relationship, you just want sex first, that can put a man in a position where he's willing to lie to a woman about his intentions so that after he gets her emotionally invested, then he switches on his intentions and he starts running the game on her, that there's still some emotional attachment involved and not just a only sex thing. That's why it takes a certain level of game to be masculine and dominant. Like when you lead with sex, if you don't have a program, then chances are you might only end up being sex with a good bit of women you come across, because you have to have a foundation by which she can respect you. So what I'm saying right here is that plausible deniability is a double-edged blade. This is Coach Brody. I'm out.